You open the Fidelity app on Tuesday morning, coffee in hand. You stare at the numbers for a long time. Not because it is big, but because it is smaller than you think. After all, it has been doing well in the game for so many years. Don't drink fancy coffee and be responsible. Somewhere in the back of your head, a quiet voice asked a question no one wanted to say aloud. Is that really enough? Today, I want to tell you a disturbing truth. A typical American family approaching retirement age has about $185,000 to $200,000 in savings. That is all the savings after 40 years of work. About 1.46 million people believe they need a comfortable retirement. That means most of us are reaching the finish line at about 13% of the speed we think we should have. Somehow, no one shouted. I'm George Mitchell. I've spent my whole life reading the Fed's report so you don't have to. Listen, this is not the apocalyptic video, I promise. Because of the difference between the two numbers, 200,000 people actually own it and they think they need 1.46 million. It tells a more interesting story than Americans' inability to save. The real story is about a leaky bucket. Once you see the bucket, you don't see it. Let me explain what I mean. Think of retirement as a bucket full of career water. Every paycheck adds a little water. Your 401k match has increased a little. The tax rebate on your actual investment, rather than your weekend spending in Las Vegas, will fall several times. The problem isn't that Americans aren't pouring water into buckets, because most of us are. The problem is that there are holes in the barrel that few people talk about. We just keep pouring hope. Let's look at the actual water level. The Fed conducts consumer finance surveys every 3 years. The most recent landing took place in October 2023, covering data from 2022. This is the most honest snapshot we have, because it surveys everyone, not just people with accounts at a particular brokerage. It showed coarseness for families 55 to 64. That is, people keep staring at retired buckets. The median retirement savings are about $185,000. Households age 65 to 74 climb slightly, to about 200,000. The problem is that the average of 55 to 64 groups is about 537,000. That sounds better, but the average is fake. When Jeff Bezos walked into a bar, the average net worth of each person in the bar became $1 billion. That doesn't mean anyone there can buy a house. The median is real. The median is the man in the bar next to you. He received $185,000. You might think, well, but $200,000 plus Social Security is nothing. You are right. SSA data show that by the beginning of 2026, the average Social Security retirement benefit was about $2,071 a month. That adds up to about $24,800 a year. If you save $200,000 and then take out 4% a year. This is a rule of thumb that financial planners have used for decades. You add about $8,000 a year to your savings. Add up. A typical American retiree earns about $33,000 a year. Too bad. I just want to say it. Retirement is uncomfortable in many parts of the country. This is the retirement of taking medicine or paying electricity bills this month. It is a hole in a bucket, because the question is not why people don't save more. The question is where the water is going. The first loophole is access. About half of American households have no retirement accounts at all. No. A survey released by the American Association of Retirees, ARP, in April 2024 found that 1 in 5 Americans over the age of 50 did not save for retirement. That is not to say they're lazy, financially illiterate, or anything else people like to blame. Their jobs never started with 401k pensions. Gallup's numbers are crazy. 83% of households earning more than $100,000 a year have retirement plans. By contrast, only 28% of households earn less than $40,000. It is not a savings issue, it is a plumbing issue, because if you never get a bucket of water, no matter how disciplined you are. The second hole is what I call the big pension swap. If your grandparents had a real job in the 50s, 60s and 70s, they might have a pension. That means the company promises to give them a check every month for the rest of their lives. This is not optional. Companies invest, manage, and send them checks. Done. In the early 1900s, 1980s. American companies have studied the whole pension issue, saying it is costly and risky. The solution is to pass it on to employees. The company began calling it 401k, literally part of the tax code. The reason is that you have to manage your money. It sounds like freedom, choice, and personal responsibility. What we don't fully clock in is that personal responsibility also means personal risk. Because if you fail to invest in 2008, that is your problem. If you cash in your 401k when you change jobs to pay for your wedding, that is your problem, too. Baby boomers are stuck in this exchange. Some have pensions, some 401ks, some both and some neither. Gen X became the first generation to retire, mainly on 401k. And the early numbers are not encouraging. Fidelity data at the end of 2024 show that the average balance of Generation X 401k is about $192,000. Iraq added 104,000 people. That sounds okay until you realize Gen X is now in its 40s and 50s. They are 10 to 15 years from retirement. Math is not math. The third loophole is something you didn't notice. When you change jobs, the original 401k evaporates. People cashed out of small balances. Transfer to accounts they forgot. Hit by fees they don't understand. According to the Pioneer 2025 US Savings Report, the median 401k balance of Pioneer participants is only about $38,000. These people actively hold Pioneer's accounts. The average was $148,000, but it was also average. Jeff Bezos walked into the bar. I want to pause here, because if you're still with me, you may be the kind of person who really wants to do something. That is, your YouTube algorithm hides the video. The algorithm likes angry bait and cat videos. It is not like a person explaining a consumer finance survey in the kitchen. If you want to see more of these videos here today, click the like button, and that is it. This little click allows the algorithm to show these things to people who really care about it. And you don't have to spend any money. It helps if you want to subscribe. Back in the bucket. Now let's talk about the numbers Americans think they need. Northwestern Mutual conducts annual studies, known as planning and progress studies. They asked people what their magic number was. That means what they need to retire comfortably. In 2024, the answer was $1.46 million to $1.26 million in 2025. The 2026 report, released as of April this year, the index rebounded to 1.46 million. This means that, in the brains of ordinary Americans, the target is about 1.5 million. At the same time, the median actual balance was 185,000 again. A typical person carries a retirement bucket and holds about 13% of what they think they need. Maddeningly, most people know this in some way. Schroeder's 2024 US retirement survey found that 57% of working Americans were worried about losing their wages after retirement. 22%, more than a fifth, said the outlook was grim. Only 10% said they could certainly afford the retirement they wanted. That means 90% of us move around with a deep financial fear that we've just learned to ignore. That is what most people miss. The story is not that Americans failed to retire, but that the story is that the bucket we handed us in 1981 had holes in it, and it was never our fault. Since then, we have been accused of leaking secrets. 401k was originally designed as a supplement to pensions, not a substitute. Ted Benner invented the modern 401k in 1980. He reportedly said in interviews over the years that he had never thought it would completely replace pensions. He also called the system a monster. We came here 45 years later. Ordinary warehouse workers are also required to work part-time as portfolio managers. I promised it wasn't an apocalyptic video, so let me turn around because some things do work. Not magic, not encryption. Fixing bugs is boring and repeatable. The first patch started early, even badly. A 25-year-old who invested $200 a month in a basic index fund, but never increased his investment, eventually made about $525,000 by age 65. Assume an average return of 7%. That is $200 a month. Here are phone bills and streaming subscriptions. It works ultimately because compound interest Where your money makes money, where your money makes money, and your snowballs of the last decade. Boring math is invincible. The second patch is a 401k match. It is really free money, and most people put it on the table. Pioneer data show that a significant number of employees do not contribute enough to capture the exact match of employers. If your company is 100% of the top 3% and you put in only 2%, you just turn down a raise. This is a vulnerability that you can fill by logging into the benefits portal within 15 minutes. The third patch is what financial planners call Social Security timing. It sounds boring, but the results are huge. You can apply for Social Security as early as 62, but your benefits will be permanently reduced. 67, full retirement age for people born in 1960 or later. So you get all the benefits. 其实, your monthly income is about 24% higher than the full retirement age for the rest of your life. The National Security Agency said the maximum benefit for the full retirement age in 2026 is $4,152 a month. For most people, delaying Social Security for 2 or 3 years is by far the most powerful retirement measure. It just needs patience. To be honest, the fourth patch may be the most important. It is talking frankly to yourself about what retirement looks like to you. Northwestern Mutual, $1.46 million figure, is what ordinary people think they need. But research by the Boston University Retirement Research Center shows that most retirees actually spend less than expected. Alicia Munnell, the center's director, has studied such issues for decades. It has been pointed out that Social Security has replaced the pre-retirement income of low and middle-income people more than the headline statistics show. Your bucket may not need to be as full as you think. It just needs not to leak. That is how I understand it all. Typical Americans retire on $200,000 in savings and $25,000 a year in Social Security. It is not a good hand. The system was redesigned 40 years ago to shift risk from companies to ordinary people. Most ordinary people don't get memos explaining what just happened. There are holes in the barrel. That is partly true, but those vulnerabilities can be patched. Not all, not overnight, but they are enough to change your trajectory. Capture your perfect match with your employer. Delay Social Security for even a year or two, converting old 401k savings into cash. Each raise automatically increases contributions. None of this is sexy or popular. That is the difference between £33,000 and £60,000 a year. The difference is the difference between worrying about electricity bills and actually enjoying grandchildren's lives. That is my question for you. I really want to know in the comments. If you could go back a decade and tell young people something specific about retirement savings, not save more, but there are specific things you learn in painstaking ways, what would it be? I read this and stole the best video of the future. If successful, click subscribe, so the next time I sit down to grab a spreadsheet and too much coffee, you'll know. Take care of yourself outside